The movie starts with a black girl walking down the street with a black man. Layla has dark, wavy hair and is wearing a dress, while the man is dark-skinned, skinny, and bald. The man calls her Layla and asks her why she is walking so fast. He asks her what time they are meeting her mates. She keeps walking fast and doesn't answer his questions. She looks distraught and stressed. Before she can do anything, a swarm of black people who look like gangsters comes and circles the guy who was with Layla and starts to beat him up. A woman comes out of her house and starts yelling at them to stop. Layla looks at the scene, cries, and screams for help. Layla is a young girl who is going to reside with her mother after having spent 15 years with her grandparents. She sits on the subway alone and stares at a picture of her mother kissing a younger version of herself on the cheek. Tears well in her eyes, but she controls herself and puts the little crusty shot back in her pocket. After she gets off the train, Layla holds a small map in her hand. She looks confused as she stands outside the station. She starts to follow the map. She passes a dirty neighborhood with crooked buildings and spray-painted skate parks. She carries her suitcase with her and reaches an apartment building. She looks at the building map and compares it to her own. Finally, after climbing a few flights of stairs, she finds her mother's house. A creepy man is standing in the hallway, and Layla feels uncomfortable under his stare, but she ignores him, carries her suitcase up to the apartment door, and knocks. The entry reveals her mother wearing jewelry and a judgmental look on her face. She looks displeased and tells Layla she looks grown up before letting her in. She shows Layla the house and then takes her to her room, which is messy with boxes. Her mother tells her Gary would move the boxes. Layla says thank you to her, and she leaves Layla to get settled. Layla opened her suitcase and started to take out her things, which included her clothes and some stuffed toys. Layla and her mother sit in the lounge, eating dinner. Layla is eating so fast that her mother taunts her about how much she eats. Layla feels embarrassed and slows down a bit. Her mother observes how small her button-up shirt is on her and asks why her grandma didn't buy her any clothes. She was always asking Layla's mother for more money. Layla tells her she doesn't know. Finally, her mother tells her she works at a pub and won't make dinner every night. Layla nods. As Layla eats, her mother looks tenderly at her and tells her they'll get used to each other. Layla smiles, and before she can say anything, her mother receives a call from her boyfriend. Layla listens for a while. Her mother laughs charmingly and tells him she's coming. She tells Layla to clean up and then goes to her room. While Layla cleans, she peeks into her mother's room to look at how she puts on her makeup and gets ready to go to the pub. Layla goes to her room and stares at a sketch of a pop star, trying to pose like her in the mirror. She asks the drawing to comfort herself if it is okay. The next day, Layla wakes up to hear a man's voice in the house. She goes downstairs to look at her mother rubbing a man's feet. She introduces the man as Gary. Gary asks Layla how she's doing before making fun of her for wearing cartoon clothes at 15. Feeling belittled and insulted, Layla goes back to her room. Layla goes to her school to check in with the administration about her admission. The administration says she isn't enrolled because her forms weren't complete. Disappointed, Layla goes home. She talks to her mother and gives her the phone number for the school. Her mother calls them and yells at them for messing up, even though she didn't return the forms she had to fill out for Layla. She hangs up and tells Layla they can look at another school down the road. Layla agrees. She goes to the new school, which is unlike the old one. This one's got kids smoking outside, no discipline in the classrooms, and looks tattered and worn out. Layla goes to her class and sits in her seat. No one pays her any attention. At the end of the day, Layla leans on a tree, staring at two girls sitting behind a bench. One of them has red hair, and the other one is blonde. They are painting each other's nails. The red-haired one, Tanisha, asks Layla why she keeps staring at them. Layla tells her she likes her hair and was thinking of dyeing it pink. Tanisha tells her they won't hang out with her unless she does something about her childish clothes. Hurt by their attitude, Layla goes home. She goes into her mother's room, and in her absence, Layla tries on her clothes that look pretty and expensive. She puts on a yellow t-shirt and practices being mean in the mirror. The next day, she wears the same t-shirt under her clothes. While leaving for school, her mother fixes her shorts and tells Layla that she got her mother's legs. She told me to let the other girls be jealous of her, and not to care. Tanisha takes her in when she sees Layla's outfit the next day. She takes her shopping, but instead of shopping, they use Layla to shoplift. Layla obeys because she wants them to be her friends. They wear their stolen outfits and meet with other girls and boys their age. A boy notices Layla there and offers a box of candies. He stares at her, making it obvious that he likes her, and then walks off. All the girls and boys notice. This boy's name is Sean. Layla is flattered. Later, the group of girls go to a video shoot for a music video. Layla lets her hair down to better blend in with the crowd. She weaves her way through the crowd with the girls, and quickly reaches the front row to the crowd. The music starts and blasts so loud that Layla jumps a bit, but then starts to enjoy it. Mostly because the main male attraction, Troy, is staring at her. He clearly finds her attractive and Layla loves the attention. The director asks the girls to come into the video and dance. When Layla doesn't come, Troy requests the director to bring her too. He's a young and attractive man, and when Troy and the director ask her to join, she gladly obliges. She doesn't really know how to dance, but she sways to the beat and Troy dances close to her. She enjoys the experience. After the video is shot, Layla stands in the corner when Sean waves to her and she waves back. Troy notices and doesn't like it, so he interferes. He asks Layla for her number and Layla gives it to him. Sean backs off when he sees Troy with her, but he doesn't seem happy. Layla goes home, but can't stop thinking about Troy. Troy never calls her, though. The next day, as Layla is cleaning, her mother comes home, pissed. She asks Layla why she hasn't started the laundry and Layla says she'll get to it now. As she is doing the laundry, Sean calls her and asks her to meet him because he wants to show her something. Layla agrees and goes with him to a place that has some computers. There are a few boys around the computer, and Sean shows her the video she had shot. Layla looks at it and smiles, happy with the way she looks. At the same time, Troy shows up with a bunch of his friends. He doesn't pay her any attention. Layla takes off her jacket to get his attention, but he still doesn't notice. Sean notices and tries to get Layla's attention, but Layla is busy trying to get Troy to look at her. She goes up to Troy and thanks him for putting her in the video. He doesn't really acknowledge her and says it's no problem. She tells him she's available for the next video. This makes the boys laugh and they make fun of her. Sean defends her and this causes Troy to get jealous. He suddenly starts to argue with Sean, and then one of Troy's friends asks him to leave. Sean glares at them, but knows he can't do anything, so he leaves. Layla stays and enjoys some time with the boys, before she is asked to leave as well by Troy. Satisfied by the attention he has given him, Layla leaves. She spots Sean standing in a corner nearby, smoking. He's a bit mad at her, but doesn't dwell on it. He starts to joke with her, and when she asks for a puff of the cigarette he gives it to her before bursting out laughing when she coughs her lungs out. Layla goes home and makes her mother some tea when she overhears Gary breaking up with her. She hesitantly tells her about Troy and shows her the music video. Her mother is happy with the way Layla looks, but warns Layla not to get pregnant. The next day, Troy asks Layla on a date. He gives her nice clothes to wear and she wears a tight red skirt for his satisfaction. He picks her up and takes her on a long drive. To Layla, this drive is magical. She loves the way he laughs with her and talks. He charms her with his jokes and charisma. Before long, he kisses her. She kisses him back, enchanted by the way it feels. He kisses her a bit more before lying down in his spacious van and asking her to join him. She hesitates because her mother's words ring in her head, telling her not to get pregnant. Troy asks her if she's ever been with a man, and she says no. He kisses her, his intentions clear. Layla tries to talk him out of it, because she's afraid. He promises her that it's okay and she lets his words comfort her and lets him have his way with her. Layla and Troy are in a relationship now. They are with each other wherever they go, and Layla can tell that Tanisha and the other girls are jealous of her with the way they look at her. It keeps going like that and Layla enjoys all the attention she gets out of it. She thinks the boy really loves her. He fights with every guy who catcalls her and she falls for it. It doesn't last long. Layla is making a sketch of Troy and a girl sitting next to him tells her not to idolize the man. Layla tells her she's his girlfriend. Tanisha shows up at that time and shows Layla a video of a girl with Troy. Layla doesn't believe it at first, but then she sees the tattoo on his arm and her heart breaks. She cries and runs over to Troy's house. She knocks on his door, and when he opens he starts to yell at her for coming to his door, instead of comforting her. Layla asks him if he hooked up with someone else, but he doesn't answer and just curses at her. She starts to cry when he slams the door in her face, devastated by the turn of events. Two girls start to walk down the corridor and recognize her. They make fun of her and Layla, in her anger and frustration, curses back. One of these girls is the girl in the video with Troy. When she hears Layla insult her, she attacks her and the other girl starts recording. She beats up the crying Layla and kicks her hard in the stomach. Layla tries to cover her face through the pain and tears, but she knows this video is going viral. She gets up and runs off to get away from the girl. She goes onto the streets, crying and bloody. People stare at her but no one asks her how she is or cares for her. Layla is tired of her life. She only sees one solution to her situation now. She jumps into the street, in front of a car. There is the sound of a car horn, a screeching tire, and then, nothing. Layla wakes up in the street to see some worried faces and a cloudy sky, but she quickly goes unconscious again. Layla wakes up in the hospital. There is a kind nurse there, who tends to her. She asks her how she's feeling and tells her she's in the hospital. Layla sees the cast on her leg and asks the nurse if it's broken. But the nurse says that it's just fractured and that she was lucky. Layla asks about her mother and the nurse says she'll pick Layla up tomorrow. Layla just lies there after that. Even when the nurse tells her to eat something, and brings her the food, Layla doesn't touch it. At night, while collecting the untouched food, the nurse asks Layla if she can tuck her in. Layla doesn't give a clear indication, but the nurse tucks her in anyway. Layla is genuinely surprised by the nurse's kindness, and when the nurse pulls the curtain and wishes her a good night's sleep, Layla starts to sob. The next day, Layla's mother and Gary bring the car to the hospital to pick her up. Layla walks with her crutches and her cast to the car with no help, other than Gary opening the door for her from inside the car. As soon as Layla sits in the car, her mother bombards her with criticism and questions and asks Layla why she would do something like that. She complains about the social services agents and police that came to her house because of the people that saw Layla jump into the street. Layla starts to cry, but her mother tells her not to dare to do that because she had caused her enough trouble and doesn't get to cry. It looks like her mother is worried, but she won't say it because of Gary. Layla is disappointed that her mother won't stand with her and comfort her and tell her that it's okay. Layla changes in the next few days. She is on bed rest and she tears the cards off the walls with her and Troy's name on them. She draws a tattoo like Troy's on her chest and vows to be tougher and to not let her walls down for any other guy. When she goes back, she's become serious and she doesn't smile. Sean meets up with her and tells her he missed her. Layla tells him straight up he doesn't have a chance with her, but he says he just wants to be her friend. Layla doesn't really believe him as she walks beside him with her crutches. He takes out a pink, bedazzled BlackBerry phone out of his pocket and gives it to Layla. Layla asks why he's giving her that and he says that he likes her. Layla says she's not going to give him anything in return for it, and he agrees. Layla thanks him for the phone. They go to lay on the grass and enjoy the weather. Layla takes a few pictures of herself from the phone as she smokes. The smoking makes her feel high and she asks Sean to kiss her. Sean asks her if she's sure before kissing her, but the kiss reminds Layla of Troy and she breaks it. Sean is disappointed, but Layla tells him she likes him a little bit. Sean and Layla hang out for a bit, but they don't kiss. Sean is being a good friend to her. One evening, as they cuddle in bed, Layla tells him that she still doesn't want a boyfriend and she's not ready for it. Sean says he doesn't mind not giving what they have a label, but Layla says they have nothing. With the excuse of her mother coming home, she kicks him out of the house. He tries to kiss her goodbye, but she turns her face and he just kisses her on the cheek, promising to call her later. Layla scrolls through her phone and looks at Troy's social media. She looks at all the hot girls that have posted their photos online and recreates them by taking the same kinds of photos for herself. Layla then goes out and walks on her crutches when she spots a poster for a concert by Troy and the other musician he was collabing with. Frustrated by not being able to look hot, she goes to her house and to the kitchen in a manic rage and cuts the cast off her leg. After doing this, she steals a golden dress from her mother's closet that she thinks would look good on her, as she had done so many times before. She shoplifts some jewelry and wigs from a local store and gets ready by wearing the golden dress and the ponytail wig. When she knows she looks good, she goes to Sean's house. She meets his mother there, who welcomes her and makes conversation with her whilst taking care of a baby who may be Sean's sibling. Sean is surprised to see her there, but to his surprise she asks him out on a date. Sean is ecstatic with this turn of events, and he says a maybe, before playfully agreeing to go out with her. They go to a crowded place where there are lines of people, and Layla tells Sean she wants to go inside, and that it'll be fun. Sean senses something is off and tells her not to go in. But it's too late because a few seconds later, they see Troy's car come in. The girls in the crowd begin to cheer, and Layla waits for Troy to come out of the car and in her line of vision, before she throws her arms onto Sean's shoulders and shows off her relationship with him. Troy sees them and looks outraged. Sean realizes what just happened and walks out on Layla. Layla tries to follow him and apologize, but he is too upset and doesn't listen. For what it was worth, when Layla gets home, Troy calls her. She picks up and he tells her he's at the door and asks her to open the door. Layla tactically hesitates before she opens the door and lets him in. Troy corners her and asks her if Sean touched her. She says he didn't and Troy gets mad and tells her not to lie. She assures him she's not lying. He tells her that no one can touch her but him. Layla tells him she's not his girlfriend, but he doesn't listen. To prove his point, he takes her right against the wall. He tells her he owns her and demands that she stop talking to Sean. She promises him that she'll stop talking to Sean, and he leaves. Layla goes to meet Sean the next day. He sits on a bench and looks depressed and upset. She sits next to him and he scoots away. He expresses his anger and frustration about her trying to get Troy back by using him to make Troy jealous. He tells her she's dumb and stupid for wanting to be with a guy like Troy, who hurt her and cheated on her. Layla stays in her denial, and after a hurtful argument, she goes back to her mother's house. Her mother is waiting for Layla in a rage. She accuses Layla of stealing her things, and when Layla denies, her mother slaps her. Layla yells at her mother and blames her for being the way she ended up. Layla tells her about how her grandfather tried to abuse her and how her grandmother didn't want her in the house. Her mother tells Layla she's weak. She tells her that she had it 10 times worse than her and she's still not broken. Layla was crying, so she was the weak one. Layla runs off crying, to the only comfort place she knew, Troy's house. She goes to Troy's place and his mother opens the door. When Layla tells her that she's his girlfriend, Troy's mother seems surprised, but welcomes her. Layla goes in to find Troy playing video games with his friends. She sits with them and laughs and smokes until she feels better. She goes to the bathroom, but makes the mistake of leaving her phone on the couch. Troy reads the messages between her and Sean and is furious at her for betraying him and talking to Sean. Layla tells him he's just a friend. One of Troy's friends comes and holds Troy back when it looks like he's about to attack her. Layla cries when Troy yells at her and says she hates Sean to save herself. Troy's friend tells her to prove it by leading Sean to them so they can beat him up. They force her to call Sean and Layla, terrified for herself, calls Sean crying and tells him that Troy did something and that she needs him. She tells him the time and place, and Troy and his friends are satisfied. They send her to get Sean. She meets Sean at Brixton, and she looks upset, but Sean just thinks it's Troy who made her upset. They reach the subway and Layla tells him they're meeting a friend of hers somewhere. He agrees, and just then, his mother calls asking for him to pick his sister up. He says he'll arrange for someone else to do it, because Layla needs him. This makes Layla feel incredibly guilty, and she tries her best to mislead him or to change his mind about going. He insists that it's fine. He would do anything to be with her. He would go anywhere for her. Before Layla knows it, it's too late. They're too close to the place where Troy's gang is hiding. This brings us to the first scene. Layla walks fast and doesn't answer any of Sean's questions. As soon as the gang sees him, they attack Sean and start to beat him up. Shaken up and disturbed, Layla witnesses as they beat him up and hold him up. She yells at them to stop, and when she sees the knife, she begs Troy to stop. He doesn't. As the boys hold him up, Troy stabs Sean. Sean looks at Layla with a look of betrayal on his face. The boys take Sean's possessions and run. Layla, shaking and crying, runs too. Troy finds Layla and gives her Sean's phone. He tells her to get rid of the fingerprints and throw the phone away. Layla looks at him with hurt and disappointment, and Troy looks like he regrets what he did because he thought he would get caught. Layla goes home, crying, knowing that she killed the only person who truly cared for her. Before long, the police show up at the door and ask Layla to accompany them to the police station for questioning. Layla's mother asks why this happened and how she could do this, but Layla starts crying hysterically and saying sorry to Sean for doing this. Only one good thing came out of this. Layla's mother decided she needed to support her daughter, so on the way to the police station, she held her daughter's hand, ready to face every battle and war at her daughter's side.